Jessica Williams had it all: a loving Air Force husband, a comfortable life, and a promising future. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect marriage, a sinister plot was brewing. What could drive a devoted wife to orchestrate her husband's death for a $700,000 insurance payout? Jessica and Alex Williams seemed to have it all. A picture-perfect military couple, they exuded the American dream. He, a decorated Air Force pilot, and she, a devoted wife and aspiring entrepreneur. Their social media profiles painted a portrait of unwavering love and shared ambitions, but beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic life, a sinister plan was taking shape. On a crisp autumn morning, the tranquility of their suburban neighborhood was shattered by the wail of sirens. Alex Williams, 32, had been found dead in what initially appeared to be a tragic accident. As investigators combed through the scene, whispers of a $700,000 life insurance policy began to circulate, casting a shadow over Jessica's grief-stricken facade. Little did anyone know that this shocking discovery would unravel a complex web of deceit, greed, and betrayal. As the days passed, Jessica's carefully constructed world began to crumble, revealing a truth more chilling than anyone could have imagined. Behind closed doors, Jessica Williams was not the woman everyone thought they knew. Her outward displays of affection masked a growing resentment towards her husband and his career. But what caused this loving wife to transform into a cold-blooded killer? Jessica's journey from devoted spouse to calculated murderess began long before she met Alex. Born into a middle-class family, she had always yearned for more. As a child, she was captivated by stories of glamour and wealth, dreaming of a life far removed from her modest upbringing. This desire for luxury and status would become the driving force behind her actions in the years to come. When Jessica first met Alex at a military fundraiser, she saw an opportunity to elevate her social standing. His charming demeanor and promising career in the Air Force aligned perfectly with her aspirations. She pursued him relentlessly, crafting an image of the ideal military wife, supportive, patriotic, and deeply in love. For the first few years of their marriage, Jessica played her role to perfection. She attended every Air Force function with a dazzling smile, hosted dinner parties for Alex's colleagues, and maintained an immaculate home. To the outside world, she was the epitome of a devoted military spouse. However, beneath the surface, Jessica's true nature was beginning to emerge. As Alex's career flourished, Jessica's resentment grew. She had sacrificed her own ambitions to support his, and the constant relocations made it difficult for her to establish her own identity. The facade of the happy military wife began to crack under the weight of her unfulfilled dreams and mounting frustration. Jessica's transformation was subtle at first. She began to manipulate Alex's schedule, encouraging him to take on additional responsibilities that kept him away from home. This allowed her to pursue her own interests under the guise of being a supportive wife. She joined exclusive social clubs and cultivated relationships with wealthy civilians, always seeking ways to elevate her status. The pivotal moment in Jessica's descent into darkness came during Alex's third deployment. Left alone for months, she immersed herself in a world of luxury and indulgence. She maxed out credit cards, took lavish vacations, and even engaged in a brief affair with a local businessman. When Alex returned, Jessica realized she could no longer reconcile her desires with the life of a military spouse. It was during this time that Jessica first learned about military life insurance policies. The staggering sums offered to families of fallen soldiers planted a seed in her mind. She began to view Alex not as a husband, but as a means to an end, a ticket to the life of wealth and independence she had always craved. Jessica's manipulation tactics intensified. She encouraged Alex to increase his life insurance coverage, citing the dangers of his profession. She researched ways to make deaths appear accidental, clearing her browser history meticulously. To the outside world, she remained the picture of a loving wife, but her actions were increasingly calculated and cold. The final straw came when Alex was offered a prestigious position that would have taken them overseas. Jessica saw her window of opportunity closing. She knew that if they moved, her carefully laid plans would be disrupted. It was then that she made the chilling decision to take matters into her own hands. Jessica's careful preparations were about to bear fruit. But what dark desires truly fueled her deadly scheme? As she inched closer to the point of no return, Jessica grappled with an unexpected inner turmoil that threatened to unravel everything. The transformation of Jessica Williams, from devoted military wife to calculating murderess, was a gradual process, fueled by years of suppressed ambition and growing resentment. As she formulated her plan to eliminate Alex, Jessica's mind became a battlefield of conflicting emotions. On one side, the remnants of genuine affection for her husband fought against the overwhelming desire for wealth and independence. Jessica's first step was to immerse herself in research. She spent countless hours poring over medical journals, studying methods that could induce fatal yet seemingly natural conditions. Her browser history, meticulously cleared after each session, would have revealed a disturbing pattern of queries: undetectable poisons, mimicking heart attacks, and staging accidents. As she delved deeper into her macabre planning, Jessica's behavior began to shift subtly. She became more attentive to Alex, surprising him with thoughtful gestures and romantic dinners. This sudden increase in affection served a dual purpose. It reinforced her image as a loving wife, while allowing her to closely observe Alex's routines and habits. Jessica's preparation extended beyond the act itself. She crafted an elaborate alibi, scheduling a girls' weekend getaway months in advance. She cultivated new friendships with women who could later corroborate her whereabouts. Every detail was considered, from the outfits she would pack to the social media posts she would make during her supposed trip. As the day of Alex's planned demise drew near, Jessica found herself plagued by moments of doubt. She would wake in the night, heart racing, questioning the path she had chosen. In these moments of weakness, she would remind herself of the life that awaited her once the deed was done. The freedom, the wealth, the status, all within her grasp. To steel her resolve, Jessica began to distance herself emotionally from Alex. She created a mental narrative that painted him as an obstacle to her happiness rather than a loving partner. She focused on his flaws, magnifying every minor transgression in her mind until the man she had once loved became unrecognizable. In a twisted attempt to justify her actions, Jessica convinced herself that Alex's death would be a form of liberation for him as well. She reasoned that he would be spared the pain of their inevitable divorce and the shame of her betrayal. This warped logic allowed her to view herself not as a murderer, but as a merciful actor in a tragedy of her own design. As Jessica finalized the details of her plan, she made one crucial mistake. In her meticulous planning, she overlooked a seemingly insignificant detail that would later become the key to unraveling her entire scheme. A receipt for a purchase made in preparation for the murder was carelessly tossed into a drawer, forgotten amidst the whirlwind of her plotting. The night before she was to set her plan in motion, Jessica stood before the mirror, rehearsing the facial expressions and body language of a grieving widow. She practiced the tremor in her voice, the catch in her breath, the way her eyes would well with tears on command. It was a performance she had been perfecting for months, and now the curtain was about to rise on her most important role yet. As dawn broke on the day that would change everything, Jessica felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The woman who gazed back at her from the mirror was no longer the dutiful military wife she had pretended to be for so long. In her place stood a woman on the brink of achieving her darkest desires, ready to sacrifice everything, including her soul, for the promise of a new life. The day of Alex's death arrived, and with it the culmination of Jessica's months of preparation. Yet, as she set her plan in motion, an unforeseen complication emerged, one that would prove to be her undoing. What crucial oversight had Jessica made in her quest for the perfect murder? Jessica Williams woke before dawn, her heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and dread. She moved through the house with practiced efficiency, setting the stage for what she believed would be the perfect crime. As Alex slept peacefully, unaware of the fate that awaited him, Jessica carefully added a colorless, odorless substance to his morning coffee. When Alex's lifeless body was discovered later that day, Jessica's performance as the grieving widow was flawless. She wept convincingly, her voice trembling as she recounted how she had found him unresponsive after returning from her girls' weekend. The responding officers were sympathetic, their initial assessment pointing to a tragic case of sudden cardiac arrest. However, as the investigation progressed, subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Detective Sarah Lawson, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving complex cases, noticed discrepancies in Jessica's timeline. The receipts from Jessica's supposed weekend getaway didn't quite align with her story, and her social media posts seemed oddly staged. As Detective Lawson delved deeper, she uncovered a trail of digital breadcrumbs that Jessica had failed to erase completely. A series of deleted searches on Alex's laptop revealed queries about untraceable poisons and methods for inducing heart attacks. These discoveries, coupled with Jessica's increasingly erratic behavior during follow-up interviews, raised serious red flags. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source. A neighbor, initially hesitant to come forward, reported seeing Jessica's car in the driveway on the morning of Alex's death, a direct contradiction to her alibi. This revelation prompted a more thorough search of the Williams residence, leading to the discovery of the forgotten receipt for the poison, carelessly tucked away in a drawer. As the evidence mounted, Jessica's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Her demeanor shifted from that of a grieving widow to a woman on the edge. During a particularly intense interrogation, Jessica's facade finally cracked. In a moment of anger and frustration, she let slip a detail about the crime scene that only the killer could have known. Detective Lawson seized on this slip-up, pressing Jessica with relentless precision. Under the weight of mounting evidence and her own guilt, Jessica's resolve shattered. In a shocking turn of events, she confessed to orchestrating Alex's murder, revealing the depths of her deception and the true nature of her relationship with her late husband. The community was stunned by the revelation. The image of the perfect military couple was shattered, replaced by a chilling tale of greed and betrayal. As news of Jessica's arrest spread, those who had known the couple struggled to reconcile the woman they thought they knew with the cold-blooded killer she had become. As Jessica's web of lies unraveled, a new question emerged. What depths of desperation would she sink to in her final attempts to evade justice? The once composed widow's facade began to crack, revealing glimpses of the ruthless manipulator beneath. Detective Sarah Lawson watched intently as Jessica Williams paced the interrogation room, her carefully manicured nails tapping an erratic rhythm on the metal table. The woman before her bore little resemblance to the grieving widow who had first captured the sympathy of the entire community. Now, with each passing moment, Jessica's mask of innocence slipped further, exposing the cold calculation that lay beneath. As the evidence mounted against her, Jessica's behavior became increasingly erratic. She alternated between fits of rage and bouts of hysterical crying, her emotions as unpredictable as her shifting stories. In one moment, she would vehemently deny any involvement in Alex's death, and in the next, she would launch into a tirade about how he had never truly appreciated her sacrifices. The turning point came when Detective Lawson presented Jessica with the forgotten receipt for the poison. The color drained from Jessica's face as she realized the magnitude of her oversight. In that instant, the last threads of her carefully woven lies began to unravel. She lunged for the evidence, a desperate attempt to destroy the damning proof of her guilt, but was quickly restrained by the officers present. As Jessica's world crumbled around her, she made one last frantic bid for freedom. In a move that shocked even the seasoned detectives, she attempted to seduce one of the younger officers, promising him a share of the insurance money if he would help her escape. This final act of desperation only served to cement the case against her, revealing the true extent of her moral bankruptcy. Throughout the investigation, a disturbing pattern emerged in Jessica's past. Former friends and acquaintances came forward with stories of her manipulative behavior, painting a picture of a woman who had always been willing to use others for her own gain. It became clear that Alex had not been Jessica's first victim, merely the most tragic. The community that had once embraced Jessica as the perfect military wife now recoiled in horror at the depth of her deception. Air Force colleagues who had supported her in the aftermath of Alex's death felt betrayed and foolish for having fallen for her act. The revelation of Jessica's true nature sent shockwaves through the tight-knit military community, shattering their sense of trust and camaraderie. As the case against Jessica solidified, investigators uncovered the full extent of her premeditation. Bank records revealed a series of large withdrawals in the months leading up to Alex's death, funds that were later traced to offshore accounts opened under false names. It became clear that Jessica had been planning her escape long before she took Alex's life, a chilling testament to the calculated nature of her crime. In a final twist that left even hardened investigators stunned, it was discovered that Jessica had been secretly corresponding with a man she had met online, promising him a life of luxury once she was free from her marriage. This revelation not only provided additional motive for her actions, but also exposed the depths of her capacity for betrayal. The courtroom fell silent as Jessica Williams took the stand, her once flawless facade now crumbling under the weight of her crimes. Would the jury see through her final performance, or would she manage one last manipulation? As the trial began, the nation watched with bated breath, captivated by the story of a seemingly perfect military wife turned cold-blooded killer. Jessica's demeanor throughout the legal proceedings was a study in contradiction. One moment, she appeared composed and remorseful, her eyes glistening with well-practiced tears. The next, flashes of anger and contempt would break through, revealing the true nature of the woman who had orchestrated her husband's death. Her testimony was a masterclass in manipulation, as she wove a tale of emotional abuse and desperation, painting herself as a victim rather than a perpetrator. The prosecution, led by the tenacious district attorney Elena Ramirez, methodically dismantled Jessica's carefully constructed narrative. Witness after witness took the stand, each adding another piece to the puzzle of Jessica's deceit. Former friends recounted instances of her manipulative behavior, while financial experts detailed the elaborate web of transactions that had preceded Alex's murder. Perhaps the most damning testimony came from Jessica's online paramour, a man she had promised a life of luxury once she was free from her marriage. His revelation of their secret correspondence sent shockwaves through the courtroom, providing irrefutable evidence of Jessica's premeditation and callousness. As the trial progressed, the impact on the military community became increasingly apparent. Air Force colleagues who had once rallied around Jessica in her time of supposed grief now sat stone-faced in the gallery, their expressions a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. The case had shaken the foundation of trust that underpinned their tight-knit world, leaving many to question the authenticity of the relationships they held dear. Alex's family, present throughout the proceedings, bore the weight of their loss with quiet dignity. His mother, a petite woman with Alex's kind eyes, never wavered in her gaze as she watched her former daughter-in-law attempt to justify her actions. The pain etched on her face spoke volumes about the far-reaching consequences of Jessica's betrayal. The broader implications of the case reverberated far beyond the courtroom. It sparked national conversations about the nature of trust, the hidden dangers of unchecked ambition, and the duality of human nature. Psychologists and relationship experts weighed in, discussing how seemingly perfect partnerships could conceal dark undercurrents of resentment and deceit. The case also shed light on the unique pressures faced by military families, prompting discussions about the support systems in place for those left behind during deployments. It raised uncomfortable questions about the potential for exploitation within the military community and the vulnerabilities created by long separations and high-stress environments. As the trial drew to a close, the jury's deliberation held the nation in suspense. When the verdict was finally read, guilty on all counts, a collective exhale seemed to ripple through the courtroom. Jessica's mask slipped entirely in that moment, her face contorting with rage and disbelief as she realized the full weight of her actions had finally caught up with her. The sentencing phase brought closure to some, but for many, the wounds inflicted by Jessica's actions would take years to heal. Her life sentence without the possibility of parole was met with a mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief that justice had been served, and sorrow for the lives forever altered by her greed.